Hey there, little buddies, and welcome to yet another edition of the Boob Tube Buddies podcast, in which we discuss Twin Peaks: The Return, Episode 6, entitled Part 6. They have really great episode names. Anyway, my name is Mothman, and I'm joined by the dead kid to my cocaine binge, Devin.
Oh.
What's going on, man?
Oh, you are too damn good. Too damn good at this.
I try. Hey, social media and stuff. We're on all of it. Follow us. Share our stuff out. Tell friends about us. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Maybe even rate us. It's just a way to support us. We even have a Patreon, but we don't want to take too much time there because there's plenty to talk about. But first, the news. What do you got, Devin? Do you have another one or no? I cannot remember.
So big event this week, right? E3 is going on, and granted, it was a little lackluster in my opinion, but this is Kotaku's. Remember the Mountain Dew guy? So this is Kotaku's list of the 6 biggest announcements. Number 1, Nintendo's making 2 Metroid games. 2, the Xbox One is announced. Xbox One X. The dumbest name I have. How much money is pumped into marketing in these companies?
I know, the Xbox One. Just leave it Scorpio. That's fine.
Right? That would have been fine. Yeah, it was like when
X2,
the Wii U.
X4. Yeah.
So that's going to cost $500. This is number 3, and I think this just kind of shows the part of gaming that's starting to kind of frustrate me. That this gets listed as a big thing. Shadow of Colossus is getting remastered for the PS4. A game that was released 2 years ago as an HD up-res now is getting a full-on remake. Number 4, BioWare's Anthem is going to get released, which is another third-person shooter.
Sure.
Number 5, Monster Hunter is coming to consoles and PC. Never played it, but I know that's got a big cult following. And probably the bigger one, which I never played it, but I know had a very big following, was Beyond Good and Evil.
Oh,
number
God,
2
I'm so excited. They did like an HD version, not even like up-resed or anything really. I mean, it was just slightly less pixelated. They did one for PS3, so I've actually replayed that game in recent memory, but I had it on PS2. Love it to death. I'm so glad that is coming out. I'm also glad, here's the thing. There's a lot of new games out there. The nature of games now, they tend to be more expansive than ever, so sometimes it's hard just to find a good game that feels almost like a movie, something you can just really dig into and enjoy on your own and not have to, play it for years and then also work with friends on it. So I do think I don't want to see the trend happen in games that's happened in movies and now TV, where they're just kind of rehashing. At the same time, I think games is a fairly safe space because there's so much indie content, but I am excited about the Shadow PS4 one because I have not played that game in recent memory, but I played the hell out of it when it came out in 2005.
Yeah, it was a while. I only complained just simply because it did just get re-released maybe a year and a half ago. So
and a lot of what those are doing, they're basically just they're going in, editing the software where the camera angle is now 16:9 instead of 4:3. And then they're just changing the output. But a lot of these HD remasters, they're not doing a whole lot. It's basically the same bones, and they're just upping some resolution. This, I believe, is now kind of like the new Crash Bandicoot, where they're basically remaking it. It's like someone looking at a painting and repainting it, but with just much better materials.
Right. And I think that they announced Skyrim again, but in VR, and that tends to get a lot of hype. But for me, it's how many times do I got to keep buying these games? I think what should be more kind of excited was finally Mario is getting a new platform. Odyssey, which is great because the side scrollers were just getting killer. What else? We got to see a new Kingdom Hearts trailer, which got me stoked. But that's for me is I want to see some of this, the new stuff. I just continually doing Call of Duty 17, or I know a lot of people are super stoked about this BioWare Anthem game, but again, it's just another third-person shooter. It's just another God of War, but this time with Norse mythology.
I am excited about that, though.
I dig the idea behind it, but again, I would really love to see maybe something kind of new and innovative, because even some indie stuff tends to be kind of side-scroller nostalgia, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I can definitely hear there. Well, look, I don't have really exciting news to tell you. Instead, I have something pretty disgusting. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
So in Rhode Island, they've had to get the local government involved, and this man now has until, I don't know, Friday, the story's a few days old, to get rid of this road he paved, because he paved it with clamshells, but the clamshells weren't properly cleaned first, so it's just clamshells that still have meat on them, and the whole neighborhood just smells like rotting flesh, and now the road's covered in maggots.
Oh, how old's the road?
Well, it's like a little driveway part of his house that he paved recently with rotten clams, basically. But now everyone is complaining about the smell, and a local neighbor's it's like bodies decaying. That's
literally.
Yeah, very little bodies decaying.
So,
so he has to get rid of that. But I just thought that was so fucking funny in its own way. Oh God, ugh. I just saw a picture of it.
Baked dead carcasses. I'm a biker, so even riding down the road and seeing a dead animal, I have to hold my breath, coming up to it and even leaving, because I get a full whiff of that with the wind, and it's horrid, man.
Yeah.
And Florida likes it because of their armadillos, and they sit in the sun, and then they get super cooked, and yeah, not pleasant. I can't even imagine. I'd riot. I'd burn down his house.
Hey, I actually found in my notes, I think I pasted it in the wrong area. I had an alternate way to introduce you. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
The leather-handed ice pick to my fleshy chest, Devin.
Oh, damn it.
So that's
all right.
for you there, too. All right, I got one more story, and then we'll move on to tweets, all right?
Yeah.
Have you heard of Goop?
It's the stuff that cleans off keyboards?
No. It's the super trendy health company from Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, you're going to make me scratch behind my eyeballs now.
She has a vaginal egg made of jade that, you know what that type of thing's for, right?
Yeah.
You do? Please tell me. I had to look this up. What's a vaginal
so I'm
egg
guessing
for?
It's something that helps dryness, correct? Or scent, I'm guessing. And then it ends up being something that you actually do insert, and it's kind of like a vaginal suppository, no?
No, not at all. Everything you say just makes you sound like a misogynist.
Damn it.
Yeah, no, instead, it's to strengthen your vaginal muscles, focus your chi, rejuvenate your natural energy. Basically just, hocus pocus bullshit.
Yeah.
And then there's all these doctors that are saying don't do that. It could cause blockages and urinary tract infections, and it's just not safe. Please don't do it. But meanwhile, this $60, jade egg is sold like gangbusters and is sold out on the website.
I bet. That's not. There was this old thing called the Benoit balls type thing, wasn't it? It was something that geisha girls used to do, and it was I'm going to screw it up, but there is historical context to this. I still hate Gwyneth Paltrow, but yes, there's.
I love Gwyneth historical. I love Gwyneth Paltrow. Her company's stupid, but she's good.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Her
and
company.
She's a good actress, and she's in a good movie. So.
No, I'm talking it's all based around her website Goop, and she's kind of become the anti-elitist cult following people, where basically she's representative of the 1%. You know what I mean? When she goes and does an article say, "What can you not live without?" She ended up going, "Oh, my $40 million barbecue."
You heard it here first. Devin absolutely hates Gwyneth Paltrow and thinks she is the left's version of Ann Coulter.
Oh, no.
All right. So, without further ado, we are going to move on to Summon It Up in a Tweet.
Oh, yeah, we're summon it up, just summon it up. Summon it up, oh, yeah, we're summon it up, oh, yeah, we're summon it up. summon it up. Summon it up and up.
Okay, do you want to go first? Should I go first? I mean, I know you're confident in when we did American Gods, but I don't know how you felt about this one.
I'll go first. Why not?
You went first last time. We'll do it. Okay.
Approach everything with
you went first
childlike
last time. We'll do
emotion.
it. Okay.
The clues will
Approach
lead you
everything
impatient.
with
Be wary
childlike
of the
emotion.
parental.
The
Their
clues
guidance
will
may not
lead you
keep safe.
impatient. Be wary of the parental.
that's
Their
some deep
guidance
shit.
may not keep you safe.
Okay, I don't know that I compete, but I'm gonna do my best Dale Cooper impersonation. Let me try it out for you. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna do it. You tell me if I'm close. I've never done Dale before, so. All right, me. Diane, the evil Richard Horn has become a kid killer. Dougie's magical ineptness continues to impress, and Hawk has found what was missing.
Nice.
Yeah.
I couldn't fit. I didn't have enough characters. I wanted
Nice.
to end mine with "Holy shit, it's Diane."
I couldn't
I know.
fit. I didn't have enough
I
characters. I wanted
also
to
was
end
gonna touch
mine
on
with
that, and
"Holy
I'm like,
shit,
wait
it's
a minute, Let me
Diane."
just do it as a memo that Dale would send, addressed to Diane. Anyway, that was Someone Left the Tweet. All right, we are now going to enter spoiler territory, even though we kind of have already. But yeah, so last episode, they mentioned we need to talk to the woman that knows Dale best because of what's going on with the doppelganger. And I wasn't really sure who that would be at first. And then it like hit me, well, it has to be Diane. But is Diane even a person? Like, is it just the name of his recorder? We've never seen her. I guess he mails these tapes off. But sure enough, she is a real agent, and it's played by Laura Dern, who,
Yeah.
David Lynch has had in his last, at least his last movie, and is a big fan of.
She had a couple of role in the original Twin Peaks too, didn't she?
Laura Dern, no.
I could have
She
sworn.
had a couple
I
of
always thought she did.
role
She
in
was
the
Jurassic
original
Park,
Twin Peaks too,
like,
didn't she?
in the next few years, but
You know, part
I
of
could have sworn I
had always
I always
kind of
thought she did.
assumed that Diane was just kind of like this weird Zen mantra
right?
that
Yeah.
Cooper
You know,
was
part
kind
of
just doing to
me had
start off
always
his little
just kind of
memo.
assumed that Diane was just kind of like this weird Zen mantra
Super,
that
it's
Cooper was kind
I
of
love
just doing to
Lynch's
start
style.
off his little memo.
And
me too.
that whole kind of, noir
Super-
bar scene
the
where
style-
it just introduces her.
I love
think
Lynch's
kind of helped
style,
set off the
and
whole-
that whole
You just weren't
kind of
expecting it. Bam, there she
noir
was.
bar scene where it
Yeah,
just introduces
no,
her.
I mean,
I think kind of helped set
she
off
has this
that
Bob,
whole.
you're not sure who it is.
You just weren't expecting
Half
it.
of you
Bam, there she
in the
was.
show is always wondering, like, is it just going to be a character you've already seen from, like, the past? But, like, then for it to be someone brand spanking new, but also that's very pivotal in the old series was, definitely pretty cool. And this is our first Twin Peaks podcast, so we'll talk about a few plot points and kind of see how you're feeling of them. But the one thing I wanted to dive into immediately was Richard Horn. Are you familiar with who that is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, he's in that one scene last episode where he grabs the girl and it's all, like, rapey and it's the absolute worst. But then after that, we now see him here, and he's dealing with this really erratic and intimidating drug dealer named Red, who does a magic trick.
A coin trick, no less.
Yeah, right? I mean, so he does that. He interacts with this guy.
A coin trick,
But
no
the fact
less.
that his last name is Horn, you're thinking maybe he's related to Audrey.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kristin brought up last week an idea, which is, Audrey was always trying to hook up with Dale. But Dale was always like, no, you're too young, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do you think Dale, as possessed by Bob, would say no? So I wonder if this is doppelganger Dale and Audrey's child.
That is...
Because he's in the he's the right age,
Oh.
right? 20s?
I had just kind of
That
assumed that
is-
she went off with, I always butcher his name,
James?
the guy
I had just kind of assumed that she
kinda
went
got
off
with
with
at the end of the show,
I always
or the end
butcher
of
his
season
name.
2.
The
I
guy
can only
that
ever remember him
she
from He's the Dick from Titanic.
kind of got with at the end of the
I
show,
can't
or the end
remember.
of season
I don't
2.
know.
What is his name?
I can only
plays
ever
the bad
remember him
guy,
from
and
He's
he
the
was a
Dick
good
from
guy in this.
Titanic.
He ends up, he said he'd come back for her, and
What is
after he
his
took off
name?
the plane. To
He's
go.
always plays the bad guy, and he was a good guy in this. He ends
I
up
like that theory.
He said he'd come back for her, and after he took off the plane to go
was always
do
kind of
trip.
this.
But
she was quirky at the beginning of the show, and then towards the end she became level-headed. So I guess I would assume
she was always kind of this.
But
she was quirky at the beginning of the show, and then towards the end she became level-headed. So I guess I would assume her offspring would be level-headed. But then again, just introduce any drugs in the Twin Peaks area, and you're just going to get chaos
and so like
just
one, you're already
destroyed
kind of what's his dark
emotional integrity.
Some possibilities out there. You see in the last episode he's terrible. This episode. He's even more terrible, and just in a super intense scene runs over this child, which is heartbreaking, but also weird and awkward because they have everyone looking on in terror, but like some of the acting is really off.
Yeah,
it's like and it's very clear like because David Lynch has gotten like amazing performances. It's very clear like he doesn't care. Like he wants like the weird almost soap opera aspect of it to make it weird. You then have that older guy who was introduced this episode, but we haven't really seen, kind of come over and console her. And then you also get the soul escaping the body, and you get the telephone pole with a number on it, similar to the room from episode 3 when Dale goes through the light socket and takes over Dougie. So a lot of weird stuff there to unpack, and as per Twin Peaks, I have no idea what it means, but those are kind of key things to keep an eye out for because they do, kind of start to potentially connect later, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's very hardcore into these soft, subtle, simple themes, and I've definitely noticed that each episode
very hardcore into these soft, subtle, simple themes.
This one, I definitely think
I've definitely noticed that each episode kind of is picked up on its own one.
I really thought that
this one I definitely think, which I think you might be onto something with Horn. I really thought that this episode had a big, huge kind of theme around being a parent. And not necessarily literally, but literal.
Right.
And you get it with Cooper. I'm going to call him Dougie, just so that way we get the doppelgangers.
Everyone's sitting there kind of playing parent
with Dougie. Is that
his wife
he's basically a toddler,
a bad example of a bad parent,
and everyone's sitting there kind of playing parent to him. Even his wife is this a bad example of a bad parent,
to the point that you
can't even let her son be a kid because she's too much focused on being a bad parent with Dougie, to the point that you see a contrast when Dougie goes up and sits with his kid. The kid has gotten so had to pick up the pieces of that missing relationship so much that he would sit there and have a toddler sitting next to him, but still be able to guide Dougie and say, "Hey, if I turn the light off, will you sit here with me and do these things that a parent should normally kind of do?" And so when you get that, you get this, okay, here's this horrible direction from a parent, but then in that episode, or in the scene with the kid getting hit by a car, he really focuses on, here's what we see as being a good mom. She's playing with her kid. She's literally guiding him down a path, letting him go about 50 yards up and chasing after him and guiding him again and guiding him again. And you sit there and you think, this is a good mom as compared to, Dougie's wife.
It's going to hit you hard.
And then what ends up happening is even as good as you can be, shit's going to hit you. And it's going to hit you hard. And
no, actually, I thought it was going to be worse because like he got hit by a car going that fast. I thought it was silly that all he had was blood on him. Like I thought it was going to be splattered head and all that.
And that was probably the first time I've yelled, "Oh my god!"
Right? Like I think about. We've talked about Adam's Evil Dead, and I'm not going to.
That was probably the first time I've yelled, "Oh my god!"
There's definitely a scene where someone gets hit by a car and dies, and then Ash's hut is basically the brains. So like it could definitely have been more graphic. But I thought it worked about right with me. The other interesting parental aspect of it as well is Truman. I don't know. I never remember his name. Is it Frank? Not Harry Truman, but Frank Truman. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Truman's brother, his wife, and how crazy she is, and how it's almost like him having to deal with a toddler.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I've just kind of noticed in every single episode, and it'll be starkly different.
Yeah.
And it's kind of so Lynch.
It's one of the things that I've just kind of noticed in every single episode, and it'll be starkly different.
And so far,
it's kind of so. Lynch has always said with this new one is that he basically wants this to be like an 18-hour-long movie.
So I'm curious whether or not
so far it's
would want
pretty.
Or could
the pace has been demanding of patience. So I'm curious whether or not you would want it or could be able to sit through 18 hours straight of this.
Where I was going,
but it ends up being this kind of thing where you're trailing off now, and I forgot where I was going.
But like, you watch it in 18 hours. 'Cause it's kind of slow.
I forgot what was I saying?
I looked over my notes and I trailed off. Edit it out.
Hey, it's all right. Well, so what I will talk about, and then
I looked over my notes and I trailed off.
Edit it out.
Is it does try your patience kind of intentionally, but I felt like the last episode and this episode have a pretty good balance of the Dougie stuff without it seeming overbearing to where I can enjoy it. But it's also just so interesting to see Dale, who is otherwise the most like well put together character, be the complete opposite, but also somehow be a success because of what he's kind of getting and being told from the other side.
You know, I'm trying to figure out what we're really trying to get with the Dougie storyline, because
I'm trying to figure out what we're really trying to get
with this
with the Dougie storyline, because
the statue.
At some point someone has to come along, and we finally saw it with this with the sheriff
this guy
finding him outside the statue.
Insanely hard. Are people
at what point would just someone passing by go, "Hey, did this guy bump his head insanely hard?"
Whether or not it's
are people so narcissistic that they cannot pick up on someone in obvious distress, whether or not it's immediately recognizable?
I think that's going to play in.
It did get finally pointed out that when someone that came in and could figure it out he was a cop, and I think that's going to play in Dougie slowly coming back to Dale.
The guy's practically.
But I just think it's interesting that we get a couple episodes of people where it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, everyone is
the guy's
like
practically comatose, and you're just kind of okay with it.
That's kind of what they're trying to say with it. I mean, it's the only thing I can think of, but it is interesting to see him kind of be in this insurance world. He takes home case files and fumbles his way through it. He sees Mike telling him to wake up, so he continues to have this presence from the Black Lodge telling him like to kind of wake up and come to. And then you also have the lights guide him, and he's drawing ladders and stairs, and maybe I missed what was going on, but maybe you can tell me. But it seems like once the boss looks everything over, he realizes he's a genius and needs to look into this. And without being able to really read everything, was it that Frank, who he called a liar, is committing fraud?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what he's basically discovered. So he called him a liar, got sent homework. The homework he was able to basically say, hey, this is because of the fraud from the liar. And now the dude's super thankful. I love that handshake. It was my favorite thing ever. Right?
Yeah. God. Everything's done so well in this show. Literally, things that would you in any other show could you sit there and go,
everything's done so well in this show
is going to be the greatest thing ever. You know what I mean?
Would you have in any other show could you sit there and go,
going to be the greatest thing ever?
And is going to be the greatest thing ever. You know what I mean? Is this assassin going to be the greatest thing ever?
And you don't. The tone is all over the fucking place. So we will at this point throw to our first segment, which is Brooky Ain't So Shy, and we're going to talk, I don't even know what about, because I haven't gotten to coordinate with them, but we're going to throw to an interview that hasn't actually happened yet, but it's going to be fantastic, because Brooky always drops the knowledge, so we will be right back.
Player 3 has entered the game.
Alrighty, we are here once again with Brooky Shy, and I have no idea what we're going to talk about because we're so uncomfortable at this point. I just throw it to you and you just drop some fucking knowledge.
Right on, man. I just wanted to say, thank you so much to the Boob Tube Buddies and my man, Mothman, for letting me, being able to speak some peace and, connect, a few dots.
Absolutely,
here and there.
Man.
And it's funny because right before we just had, a little, 2-minute pep talk behind the scenes inside baseball, and I was like, I have like these like funny theories that stretch back through season 1, like all these like a jokey like right-wing reading of sexual pathology that I don't believe in, but still like makes hilarious sense. And I keep waiting for there to be an episode of this return that isn't like so profound and like heavy to watch that I can like go into some like lightness. But would you agree, my man? This is probably the most brutal thing that David Lynch has put on this series so far. What do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, between the death of the kid and then Ike the Spike, and there's still that sense of awkwardness and humor. Like he never lets anything be too brutal, but it's still like it's definitely heavy watching. It's not easy listening. That's for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking I've seen everything that he's made except for The Straight Story, which is ironic considering that's his only G-rated film.
Oh.
And I don't remember anything in his catalog that has to do with explicit violence to children, with the exception of his first film, Eraserhead, where it's about a father coming to terms with anxiety and then committing infanticide, basically. So with that in mind, like what I wanted to go in on this little segment is the idea of abjection. Abjection is a term that is used to, it has multiple different ways you can look at it, but by definition, it is the space between a subject and an object. So when you apply it with a human psychological understanding, it is the mind's inability to cope with seeing something terrible, violent, usually involving bodily fluids. That's a heavy one. And the idea of recognizing yourself within it, but being so horrified that you push it away in anger or revulsion, like abject horror or abject poverty. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the state of being cast off, I believe it means.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, there's a great essay by Julie Kristeva. It's called The Power of Horrors, an essay on abjection. It's pretty much like the go-to for all art and cultural analysis of looking at abject horror portrayed in modern art. And with I don't know which part you're cutting in at, but if not, spoiler alert for everyone else, Richard Horne has his masculinity and stability insulted by the magic motherfucker Red.
Yep.
And through drug-induced horror, kills a child in a brutal hit and run that the camera never flinches away from. Now, this is very interesting because not only is it the same intersection where Mike harasses Leland and Laura Palmer in Fire Walk with Me, but it also brings back another character from Fire Walk with Me, in my personal opinion, the greatest living actor that we have right now, Harry Dean Stanton. Gotta give it up. I love him, like from Aliens to Repo Man to Pretty in Pink, Paris, Texas, on and on. Like that dude is genius. Like he's someone that carries with him the weight of the real with him. He was a Navy man who was in the Korean War. He never really broke big in Hollywood despite being in some classic films.
Sure.
And when he's on screen, you can tell that a lot of his lines are improv. It's a favor that he did at the age of 89 for his good friend David Lynch. He had already been in Wild at Heart and Inland Empire, and I assumed after Inland Empire that he was pretty much retired. Like he did a documentary film called Partly Fiction, which is a very interesting look on his life because, like David Lynch, he has a very Zen Buddhist mindset. He doesn't believe in the real world. His funniest quote is, I've smoked for 75 years every fucking day, but that's something that he said in interviews, and it's often followed by, and I've never been married. That's why I've lived so long. That's like the punchline of the joke. Right?
Okay. That's funny.
So to introduce this character, this wonderful old man who just has so much screen presence and like reality, like baked into his like being even on the screen. He's a legend who was in Cool Hand Luke with Paul Newman, like classic Hollywood, you know?
Yeah.
And he's the only one that is able to comfort a mother in the worst moment of abject horror in her life. Everyone else is frozen in shock and disbelief, much like we were talking last week with the themes of allowing masculine power and recklessness to go unchecked, and everyone being too afraid to stop it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's interesting that the only one who comes in is this old weathered man who, in the story in Twin Peaks universe, has been abducted to the Black Lodge when he was a child, has witnessed all these things in his trailer park in Fire Walk with Me, who's keyed in on some level, on the level that he understands that whatever it is in this town that makes these things happen is like a metaphysical, hard reality threat. Like it's something evil that, while it may be like ghosts and goblins or whatever, when it manifests in the town of Twin Peaks, it's a father murdering his daughter or a psychopath running over a child without reason, without stopping. And everyone is just like lightning strikes. Violence appears out of the sky with no rhyme or reason. And he's the only one who provides comfort. And within shock and like the reconciliation of your mind with abject horror, I've seen like a lot of people, I don't know what your read is, like criticizing the extras in the thing, saying, oh, they're horrible actors. Why isn't anyone calling for help? Why isn't anyone getting in their car and chasing that guy down and beating his ass?
It's funny, Devin and I, not even about that, but just talked about in general, like, it's very clear he got extras, like gave it a take and didn't, like, wasn't worried about it looking, you know, realistic, because there is just this air of I don't know, just weirdness and unbelievability and everything that is Twin Peaks, and he'd rather just have them like look cheesily in awe.
Well, that's the thing though, if it's the criticism that these people are actors, I would like to tell you something a little personal, you know, and like put it out there on Boob Tube Buddies, like something that happened to me when I was like 12 years old. My mom used to take me and my buddy Blake after school on Fridays to Blockbuster Video. You know, you remember VHS tapes and all that stuff?
I do. Blockbuster was my first job.
Box days.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Right before the bust and everything. I
right
remember
before
thinking, oh, would it be to work at Blockbuster when I was a kid?
Yeah.
But, you know, and we'd get our movies and hand them to our mom and she'd check them out. We'd go outside and goof off like being like 12, 13-year-old kids or whatever. And one Friday, I remember this vividly. We had gone there. We were going to like have a sleepover, you know, and like do like kid stuff and play Silent Hill on the PlayStation. And like we were standing out in front of this place. It was like a mini mall and it hooked up and there was a Rack Room Shoes connecting to remember Rack Room Shoes, God blast from the past, but like connected to this Blockbuster. And I remember looking to my left at the same time my friend Blake did, because he was already looking over there. And it was this old woman pushing a cart in the middle of like a 5-lane road, like in a business area, and this maroon minivan plowed into her and killed her instantly. You know?
Oh, crazy. And
like, it's crazy because I have like the image of her walking across the road, but I don't, in my mind, I can't even remember what it looked like when the car hit her. You know what I'm saying? So like,
yeah,
when your mind is put in that state, it's like your brain protects itself from the trauma of having to confront mortality and reality and abjection, you know?
Yeah,
and
I mean,
like
I saw a dude like fuck up on a motorcycle, and the way he hit, and like his helmet shattering, like I thought that the dude was dead, but I mean, he actually wasn't breathing but unresponsive. I don't know what happened. He went to the hospital, and then I also drove by right after a homeless dude stumbled into the street drunk and saw like the tarp over, you know, like a smashed head, you know what I mean? Like, and not that it's obviously very different from seeing it happen and like knowing what the result is, but either way, I've definitely seen like the crowds afterwards. And to me, I'm not really, I don't have any qualm with them not calling the cops or not doing this. I mean, I do think that happens pretty quickly, but let's be honest, they're giving you the awkward minute, 30 seconds after where most people are completely stuck and frozen. And that didn't bother me. It was more just the fact, it actually didn't bother me no matter what, but there's very clearly like this soap opera acting going on with like a handful of the extras, you know what I mean?
Definitely. I didn't mean to step on your toes with your critique, but like to wrap it up, like with the theory of like abjection meeting, like having to have like a catharsis in someone to witness it, and how that shock and trauma works within Lynch. Like my mom, she used to work in a Department of Social Services, like with child abuse and like elder abuse in nursing homes and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
She was like top tier in like the state of North Carolina. And after like she retired, I remember asking her like what it was like, so I was thinking like maybe I would like to pursue a career in social work. And she said like some things like you hear and you see and people tell you when you're on a job like that, when it's your job to bear witness to things, it's so traumatic that even as a professional, you block it out in your mind. There's like spaces where you know like the gist of what happens, but you can't, like afterwards, like weeks later, it's just your mind fixes itself, and there's something about it that's so abject and so horrible that your mind still can't reconcile, and that causes like emotional trauma. Like a lot of police and like a lot of people in fields where they have to like deal with violent things, like they
Sure.
have to obviously undergo like extensive therapy and like case sensitivity courses and stuff like that. So why would you think that like David Lynch would do all this stuff? Because like no one else on TV is doing this. There's a lot of like glorification of the anti-hero and a lot of like shock and violence and casual transgressive things. Like I would say, like, even though I'm like Breaking Bad's one of my favorite shows ever, if you think about it, like it's still a very thriller, action, high-paced thing where it's like a contrived like crime mystery. But with something like Twin Peaks, it's like violence is sort of, it's so real that it's hyper real because it falls out of the sky and these things just happen and people stand around and it's shocking and it's almost like completely, it's the shock of the real creates the surreal, if you know what I'm saying. And I think we'll wrap it up there, man. We'll see you next week, little buddies.
Absolutely. Thank you. Brooky Shy, we will see you next week, my friend.
Player 3 has left the game.
Okay, we are back. Thank you again to Brooky Shy. We love having him on here. One of our avid fans and also just super hardcore into Twin Peaks. So thank you again. As always, great stuff. I think the last two things we really want to dive into, one of which is that fucking brutal hitman, right?
I love him.
He looks like Vern Troyer on steroids.
The original framing of the shot, too, you don't sit there and you don't bring stature into it. And by the time he goes and picks up his envelope, you're like, oh, okay.
Sure. And I'm thinking like, wait, is that a leather-bound ice pick? I think it is. And then he stabs these two things, and one of them obviously is Dougie. The other one, do you remember who she is? I immediately recognized her, knew she was in the show, and then we obviously see her get brutally stabbed. But do you remember what her significance has been or no?
She was from the first episode, right?
Maybe.
I can't recall. I recognized her, but I was too disjarred by the music that was played at it, and I'm constantly trying to figure out clues on things that are not in the immediate visual spectrum of each shot. So sure. I was trying to I almost sat here and pulled up Siri to be like, Siri, what is this song?
Yeah.
And then I was caught off guard by him being depressed that his ice pick finally failed him and bent.
Oh my god, yeah, that was such a funny joke that he's brutally stabbed this girl all in the chest. You're just like, Jesus Christ. And then he clearly stabbed a girl coming in because he heard her screaming. And then another girl sees him, so he is just not having any witnesses. So he just starts killing people. But yeah, the fact that he on the last kill he bends it. That's kind of the dark gallows humor that the show always has, which in the really dark moments it kind of gives you a little bit of light. It's brutal, but at the same time you're not I don't know, it's not unflinching, I guess, so to speak.
It sits there and it's kind of because that was a scene right after the kid gets hit, right? So you get something where it's these kind of contrasting moments where the kid gets hit by a car and you're just so blown away. It gets followed up by, I think, intentionally poor acting to kind of contrast that. And then you get back to this kind of comical, why is this, person playing Yahtzee and ordering a hit, to getting this horrific stabbing and then going right back to, oh, it's an L shape. Although, did you notice, or did you kind of think it connected to the ladder shape drawings that Dougie was doing on the insurance forms? Because it was very much L 90-degree angle type shapes.
Okay, possibly. So I just looked this up. The character's name is Ike the Spike, and this is who that character was. Her name was Tammy, and if you recall, she is the woman that was sitting outside of Dougie's house spying, and then that other group put the bomb on his car. So it's very clear that she was meant to take out Dougie and failed. And so now this dude's meant to take out her and anyone connected to her and Dougie, which makes sense. Other than that, I mean, obviously Diane is a big revelation, but not much happens other than the fact that it's going to happen. There's also the scene where Hawk was told something was missing, and it's going to have to do with his heritage, and he happens to be in the restroom and sees the restroom, the steel door or whatever, aluminum door. It's some company that has a Native American logo, and he notices bolts are missing. He pries it open with a crowbar and finds some pages in there. So interested more than anything else to kind of see what this ends up tying into and what it's going to mean, because that was one thing that does seem to always tie together in the Twin Peaks shows, is the fact that when there's a clue like that through a dream, it does mean something. Whereas there's all these other things that may just be, weird quirks that don't actually have any significance. Like that, I'm counting on having significance,
Right. And I think, that scene with Hawk ends up playing this whole, into the whole idea that if you look at things simply, then you're going to find something that's kind of out of place. And all he did was just kind of look down and see his, heritage kind of icon and suddenly realize, hey, there's something missing here. There's a nut missing, which leads to that. And it ends up being kind of maybe Coop's old, unique style of investigation kind of being imparted on everyone after his time in Twin Peaks.
There's always a very, mundane sense of investigation in the Twin Peaks shows, but it's also just kind of the concept of just life is kind of complex and magical and wonderful. So it's things like transcendental meditation and dream detective work, yet it's seeing a logo on a bathroom stall.
Or wait, what did he do in season 1? They stood far away. Oh, they threw rocks at beer bottles.
Until a bottle broke. Yeah, so I mean, there's that type of stuff too, for sure. Well, we have a really exciting segment, and then we'll come back and maybe talk a few theories before we wrap it up before next week. And this next segment, really excited about. I don't really have a name for it, but essentially I had Foxman, who you all should know, who has never seen any Twin Peaks. I had him watch the premiere without any backstory because I was very curious what a show like this would feel like to someone with no concept of the show, right? Because it's a heavily promoted show. I'm sure people that have Showtime have given it a shot because of the hype and haven't seen any of it. And I really don't know what that would be like for someone. I don't know if it would just be like, man, this is worthless. You need to be kind of entrenched in Twin Peaks and David Lynch for it to really tickle your fancy. I have no idea. So I'm about to interview him, and we'll go from there. All right, we'll be right back. Alrighty, Mothman
Hello
here.
and welcome. Oh, sorry,
Really
I forgot what we were
doing
doing.
that joke even after we had to restart.
Come on, man. I like to commit.
That's true. So we have Foxman here, who, for those of you that listen to a lot of our shows, you'll realize that he's like a semi-regular contributor.
I mean, is this the point where I get to plug my stuff? So before we get into it, let me tell you, you guys can check out our coverage of Fargo episode by episode, season 3, Nate Dogg and Warren Foxy. And then we got Jables and I covering Better Call Saul. Come on, y'all. That's all I got.
Man, that was a pretty good rhyme, though. I'm proud of you.
I guess so.
Yeah,
That's what happens when you go off script.
That's true. So, okay, so I'm going to give the audience the premise, even though I probably explained it immediately before. But I watched this 2-hour premiere, being a big David Lynch fan, and having obviously seen the original, and still thought it was a little weird. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I was dying to know what it would be like for someone who literally has no context whatsoever. So, how far did you even make it into it?
An hour and 35 minutes.
What was the last thing you saw?
I've already scrubbed my brain of all the memories of the last hour and 35 minutes, so I literally could not even tell you. I saw. Well, first off, there was definitely a dead woman with a big eye cavity, and then Matthew Lillard, I think, got arrested for it, and then his wife came into the jail. She was not sympathetic. In fact, she was maybe having an affair with the lawyer, and everything that preceded that, I have no idea how it tied in, what any of it means, and also, can I just say that watching this hour and 35 minutes of television has shifted my perspective on the world and honestly on our friendship forever. So let me phrase it like this. You'll hear people sometimes say like, you shouldn't watch so much television. It rots your brains out, blah, blah, blah. Like, I get that now. And honestly, maybe it's time to disband Boob Tube Buddies because I don't ever want to watch television again.
I feel like you were just watching it with your wrong eyes, man. You're supposed to use the pineal gland.
This, I'll tell you what this was. This was a testament to our friendship right here. Like, this was my, disclaiming to the world, like, my loyalty to you and, what a great job that I think you're doing by putting in an hour and 35 minutes of like a relatively busy and fulfilling life that I lead into whatever that just was.
Oh god. Wait, so what's crazy is you didn't mention what was really to me like the holy fuck moment. So the dude that's like just watching the glass case?
Yes. Do you want me to comment on whatever the hell that was?
No. I was making sure it wasn't about to jog your memory with what happened. So essentially, that girl's showing up to kind of talk to him, right?
Yeah, she's the girl from Californication.
Yeah, and eventually the guard isn't there, so he brings the girl in, she gets naked, they start making love, and then...
I watched that part.
Oh, you saw the murder?
If that's what the murder... I don't know what the fuck was happening. I mean, I don't know how any of it tied into each other.
You didn't see their faces get ripped off and, blood go everywhere?
But it was so surreal and so out of context that I don't even know that they were murdered. For all I know, that was somebody's fever dream.
Yeah, well, okay then. Well, at the end of the episode, or towards the end, you see Dale finally make his way back.
I'm sorry, who?
Dale Cooper?
I don't know who that is. I just watched an hour and 35 minutes, and I have no idea who Dale Cooper is.
So Dale is the guy that's trapped in the Black Lodge in the suit.
What's the Black Lodge?
It's the room with, the weird squiggly floor and the red curtains.
And who is trapped there?
The guy in the black business suit. With the slick back hair, and you see flashbacks to his eyes going white and him screaming.
Yeah, but he was out doing shit the whole episode.
Yes, so that is his doppelganger, possessed by the demon Bob from the end of season 2. Obviously.
Okay, I got you.
So here's the thing that's so interesting about Twin Peaks to me is that Devin, who is also a Boob Tube Buddy, has watched the entire first 2 seasons.
Sound of X.
Yes, Sound of X and the new season, and absolutely loves it. And I think the charm, and not that he didn't have his qualms with the new season, right? But I think the charm of Twin Peaks is how gradually it becomes just bug nut insane. So by the time that it's this season...
Oh, yeah, no, gradually. That's what this felt like. This felt like I'd gone 0 to 100 pretty goddamn quick.
So I kind of feel like, and this will be the true testament to my friendship, I kind of feel like now I want you to watch the pilot and then discuss again, because I swear it's 2 different shows. And the pilot is a self-contained movie. It's an hour and a half. it works.
Dude, you're gonna have to like give me some blowies or something if you want me to watch another hour of this. Fuck you.
Oh my god, no, it is. So I will say it's the craziest thing in the world because the original show I watched as a David Lynch fan, watched episode 1, and by the end of it, I was fairly hooked because of like the procedural true crime aspect, and it was slightly quirky.
True crime. What about nothing about this episode was true crime, right?
No, not at all. So the original show starts like it's a murder mystery. It's a whodunit. The whole series up until the second half of the second season revolves around the death of the high school beauty queen in Twin Peaks. And
I can't even imagine. Like, that seems so unrecognizable from what I just watched.
Right? Yeah. No, so it literally, it seems like the furthest thing from a David Lynch show. And then as you watch it, not only does it get weird, but it also is just this kind of remarkable show because it's from 1992 and it is basically an HBO show, but like years prior. And I don't mean like this thing on Showtime that's just crazy and experimental. I mean, in general, it's just a very mature show, but it also at the same time is kind of spoofing like soap operas and a few other things. So it's literally could not be further apart, which is why as a show that's so heavily marketed to just everyone, not necessarily people that watch this original show. And honestly, if you did watch the original and you don't rewatch it, there's 25 years between them.
I got that because he's something about like the lady says see you in 25 years or something like that, and I had heard like, isn't it crazy they came back 25 years later and yada yada.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I know you're playing it up a little bit, but it is fucking crazy.
Oh no! You're
definitely, yes,
I am not playing anything up. That was literally, I never realized how badly I didn't want to watch a show until I watched this show today. It was literally the worst piece of visual media that I've ever tried to cram into my poor little brain.
So there's not even an aspect at all that you enjoyed?
Okay. For anybody listening to this episode, I'm sure that you like Twin Peaks. Of course you do, because you're listening to this podcast and you're multiple episodes in. So let me put this into context. I have no idea what happened in the first 2 seasons at all. Just imagine, like, seriously, take yourself out of it and just put yourself into watching this episode.
That's why I wanted you to do this.
Like,
I honestly couldn't do it.
The most surreal and sloppy piece of art house shit that I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, like, I know I'm doing a little bit of a shtick, but I'm telling you, it was the worst thing I have ever watched in my life.
I don't know, man. It could have been a little worse. It could have had gay cowboys eating pudding in black and white.
Dude, I would seriously have been so goddamn grateful if that's what it was after having seen this.
I don't know if you remember that South Park episode with like the film festival coming to town.
I do not. No, that sounds like an early season.
Oh, it is, but there's an ongoing joke throughout where Cartman's saying, all indie films are just gay cowboys in black and white eating pudding. And Kyle's like, no, they aren't, dude. And then by the end of the episode, they finally get in, like, sneak into a movie, and that's what it is.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to give you a blowjob so you'll watch the pilot.
Oh God, this is the worst interview that we've ever done on Boob Tube Buddies.
Oh God. Well, I could not thank you enough for doing it.
You're very welcome, and thank you for giving me that moment right there for our 1-year anniversary clip show.
Oh man, fair enough. All right, we are back. Thanks a million, Foxman. I'm also recording this tomorrow, so I have no idea how it went. I'm sure it was funny and hilarious, and I'm still itching to know actually how he felt about it. But what I will say is, if you like Better Call Saul, if you like Fargo, Foxman is doing those. And then Foxman and I next month will be doing Preacher together. OG Boob Tube Buddies between me and him. So thank you for coming on the show. Last bit is, Devin, I think you had a fan theory you wanted to talk about, or a you theory. I don't know whose theory it was.
I've got 2 going throughout the entire show that I'm curious what you think the significance is.
Okay.
So I'll go with the one I'm leaning towards. A lot of, have you noticed that everyone that's pretty much under the influence of some type of narcotic tends to be more sensitive to the paranormal stuff that happens in this show? And, you got the girl from across the street with the car bomb. She's very clearly high as a kite on something, and she's picking up on life, signals. Bro. Yeah. Like, even if you break it down to the core original theory of Twin Peaks, Laura was high all the time, and it also brought her in to be sensitive with all of the paranormal stuff that was happening with Bob. So I'm curious how much of this is actually happening because of this stuff. How much of it is actually being brought into it? Like most of this new season has been outside Twin Peaks, except for some kind of nostalgic throwbacks. Now that Horn's in town bringing some drugs, are we going to start seeing more people do a buttload of drugs and then kind of go back to pulling in some of that paranormal stuff? Or
maybe, yeah. I mean, I think it also could possibly be trauma, because you think about Laura was experiencing this her whole life, and it wasn't until later that she was doing the drugs, and it wasn't until later that she realized it was her father. So she always was seeing it as, Bob. But it also doesn't mean that's the only way to actually be able to. Maybe it's just the trauma that's inherent with doing too many drugs that leads you to kind of be able to see on the other side. But that's interesting. In many ways, it does check out.
So the other one, which it was my theory at first, until this new season, because obviously we're not in Twin Peaks anymore, was I was thinking it was more kind of landlocked. And although we might still kind of be there, because one of the reasons I think they keep focusing up on the power poles when when anyone's dying, they're entering or leaving a power source of some kind. And these are electrical waves that are transferring, infinite distances to all these other things. So how much of Twin Peaks left and went to that trailer park through those power lines? How much of it, granted, here's a little bit of spoiler, I don't know if any of the fans have gotten so hard into it to see Fire Walk with Me. The trailer park is the same town that Mike approached and had that psychotic breakdown with Leland in the car with Laura. That's the same town. So how much of that energy that was given at that point in time, how much is that getting, locked into the land?
Sure.
Because we've not seen that town except for Fire Walk with Me. So those are my two kind of theories right now, is whether or not you're dealing with, the narcotics could be in the same lines of the trauma stuff, because it's all mental, kind of health-based stuff. Like, is our immediate universe kind of based on a perception of wherever our brain's taking us? Or is it this thing, like I thought for a little bit, is it landlocked? Is there just some paranormal stuff with the land? Is it Native American? Is it, paranormal stuff like the waterfalls, or bringing some type of carbon energy or something like that? I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, it remains to be seen. I honestly don't know if we're doing next week's episode together. It might be with Kristin, but we will definitely do another episode together. And at that point, hopefully we'll have a little more fully formed, because I really haven't theorized much of anything, I just and that's one of the things I do with Twin Peaks. I kind of just enjoy it. At the same time, I imagine as we're kind of approaching the halfway point, that's probably why some people are listening, is to hear some crazy theories. So even if I just have to go onto Reddit and kind of share some out, we can always do that. But anything else you wanted to tackle?
Other than I loved the Tommy gun.
I know, right?
Wasn't that great?
It's so good.
He's just back there holding a Tommy
and then the villain, kind of has like a cool jacket on. It's kind of like I don't know. Lynch loved the 50s, and it's kind of like a modern 50s.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess even 50s would be late to have a Tommy gun, but they were retro even then.
Did you? It's funny that you brought up Ash vs. Evil Dead, because I got an Ash vibe from that crazy drug dealer. Hardcore. Like, I don't know if it was just his style,
a little bit,
but I'm sitting there going, dude, they should have got Bruce Campbell for this.
Yeah, he's definitely got the square chin.
He even had a fucked up liver.
Yeah. God, awesome. Cool. Well, hey, are you ready to tie a bow on this bitch, Devin?
Oh, I am. We'll see you next time, little buddies.
Nailed it.
Oh,
God,
you're
that was
doing
good.
it.